Okay, so let me just open up the, I think we're on page, let me see, you tell me. Or, yeah, or let me just see, maybe 110 is where we're going to start. Yep, 110. So last time we spoke about, sorry, we spoke about leaning and davening and putting your feet, okay, and now we're going to talk about the proper pose, is the word they use here during the Amida. So, okay. 1 second, let's just share screen. Okay, all right. So what is the proper pose during Amida? Yeah, those who might be listening, tomorrow, the Lunch and Learn is not on organ donation, but I will discuss whether you're allowed to bet. What? Too late now. Well, you'll know if you're allowed to make bets for next year. So, sorry, 1 p.m. tomorrow. Still ample time to withdraw. What time's the race? Well, it depends which ones you're betting on. But anyway, we'll discuss betting and gambling and halacha tomorrow, and also on Thursday in the city. That's going to be this week. Next week will be on just the halachic topic of organ donation. So this week's Tuesday, Thursday, Shalom will be on betting. Next week will be on organ donation. Okay, so let's have a look here at the Gemara. We spoke about various positions of feet and things, but what about just a general demeanor and posture during davening? So we have the Gemara here, which actually brings a machloket about how you're supposed to stand during davening. The Gemara in Yevamot, in source 27 here, brings the following machloket in the Amoraim. The Rebbe Chia, the Rebbe Shimon, Bar Rebbe Havu Yatve. So Rebbe Chia and Rebbe Shimon Bar Rebbe were sitting. One of them said, Hamit Palel Sarich Sheyiten Einav Lamata. One of them held that when you're davening, you have to look downwards. Shneimar, as it says here, quotes, my heart and eyes will be there for all days. And the other one says, no, when you daven, you're not supposed to look down, you're supposed to look up. Upwards. As it says, right? Let's lift our hearts with our hands, basically, like look upwards, So there's a machloket as to whether you're supposed to look up or down during tefillah. Adahachi, in the meanwhile, as happens in these rabbinic disputes, someone else came along. After Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi came to them. Amalu, he said to them, but Mayas Kitu knew what sugya are you learning? Amrule, they said to him, tefillah. We're talking about tefillah. That's what we're arguing about. So we're on page 110. So that wasn't okay. Yeah, okay. Amalahu, he said to them, Kach Amar Abba. This is what Abba said. Rabbi Yossi, his father, said, Hamit Palel, Sarach Shiyatain Einav Lamata Vilibo Lamala. Eyes downwards, heart upwards. Kadeshit Kaimu Shnei Mikraot Halalu. And that way you fulfill both of these psukim. You're supposed to look physically downwards, but your heart's supposed to be feeling like or imagining upwards. And that way you satisfy everyone. So there is this idea of gazing downwards during tefillah. This seems to go against another halacha. If we look in the Gemara Brachot in source 28, which says that a shul is supposed to have windows, and the idea being like almost that you look upwards when you daven. In source 28, the Gemara Brachot says, Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Al yitzpalel Adam, ele babayit sheyesh sham chalanot. A person should daven in a place where there are windows. Shneimar, as it says, right? V'chavim p'tichan le ba'alitei neged Yerushalayim. And that in his loft, his attic, there were windows open towards Yerushalayim. So that seems to imply, at least as we see according to one opinion, the idea is he's supposed to be gazing outwards and upwards towards Yerushalayim. And therefore, this seems to contradict the Gemara, which says that we're supposed to look downwards. So which is it, downwards or upwards? So the Beit Yosef here in source 29 actually brings the opinion of Mari Abu Hav, who says that it depends. Rabbeinu Yonah explained differently. Rabbeinu Yonah explains the reason you need windows is not for kavana, but it's essentially for air conditioning, right? That it's to help your concentration. There should be a healthy airflow. It's kavana indirectly related to kavana. Sorry, COVID, right? There you go. So the Rabbeinu Yonah says why windows have got to be rooms that they've got to be well ventilated. So therefore, it's nothing to do with kavana, the way you're supposed to look. It's just supposed to have the way you're supposed to daven. It's about the setting, about where you daven. But according to Rashi, who says it's about kavana, where you're looking, and the question is, how do we answer the contradiction of these two Gemaras? So let's look at the Beit Yosef here in source 29. It says the Beit Yosef in Archaim Salihei. Katav Rabbeinu Hagadol Mahari Abu Havzal. The Mahari Abu Hav wrote, Mipnei Kushizod, based on this kasha, this difficulty in the difference between the two Gemaras. Pershu Talmidia Rabbeinu Yonah, the Tam de Bayit Sheyesh Bochalanot. Rabbeinu Yonah says that the reason that a house which has windows, that has to have windows for davening there, Eino Elikadesha Habayit Mutukan Ba'avir Tov. So the house should be well ventilated. And that's the reason. It's nothing to do with kavan, to tefillah. Aval Rashi, the Rashi sheper shachalanot gormino shechabin libo, shul mistakal klape shmayim libo nichna kasha. It's difficult going to Rashi, because Rashi says the reason you have windows in a shul is you're supposed to look through the windows to the heavens. Then it's difficult, because one Gemara seems to conclude that you're supposed to look down, not up. The Shlomar, and the answer is, Shema shekatav shistakal kalape shemayim, that which the Gemara says, so you look towards the heavens. It's You're not supposed to be all the time looking upwards. Ela rather sha'al yidei ha'avara. They're just in passing. If he happens to gaze on occasion upwards, yikana levavo, his heart will be subjugated and humbled. And therefore, says the Mari Abu Hav, you can glance occasionally upwards. Really, you're supposed to be looking downwards, and on occasion, you glance upwards. And the windows, according to Rashi, are there. So when you do, on those small occasions that you do glance upwards, you think of heaven. Okay. So, la halacha, the Shulchan Aruch actually paskins here in Sadi Hay, in source 30, that you're supposed to really, for the majority of tefillah, be looking downwards. But your heart, you should be thinking upwards. In source 30, it says to Shulchan Aruch, you're supposed to bow your head a little bit. So that one's eyes are looking downwards. One should think, you're going to imagine as if you're in the Beit HaMikdash, but in one's heart, you should be directing upwards towards heaven. So here, from what we've seen in, I would call the Torah Hanigle, in the non-mystical Torah, that there's no requirement for your eyes to be closed. You should be looking downwards in subjugation with your head slightly bowed. That is how things are presented in our Gemara and in the Shulchan Aruch, based on Rishonim. However, based on more mystical readings of the Zohar and the like, there's this idea also presented that people actually should have their eyes closed. That all comes from the Zohar, which we'll see. So if we look over, yes.
So they understood that in the Beit Mikdash, you keep your eyes down the whole time?
Well, no, I think there's two separate things. One is it's down like subjugation. The other one is you should also supposed to be imagining that you're davening in the Beit HaMikdash. It's the other Gemara, Brachot says this. I don't think they're related. Over the page, top of 112. Let's have a look at Mishnah Berurah here. Lamata la'aretz. Supposed to look downwards. Says the Mishnah Berurah, those who look upwards, it's not good. Because if they're looking up on the roof, on the ceiling, right? The malachim mock them. Sefer Chassidim says that. But Katu Acharonim, the Acharonim wrote, Shekol mi she'eino otsem einav b'shat tfilat yudchet. Anyone who does not close their eyes during the Shemona Esrei, eino zoche lirot pnei shchina b'tzeit nafsho. Does not merit to see the Shechina as he leaves this world. However, im mitpalel b'sidur, if you're davening with this, looking in a siddur, ve'enat pekuchot kedei lirot bo, but you're looking at the siddur, then late number, then we have no issue with that. So he essentially says that really some Achronim say that you're supposed to have your eyes closed the whole way through, unless you're reading the siddur, which is just a need of tefillah. But if it's not a need of tefillah, you're supposed to have your eyes closed, and this is all based in the Zohar. The Zohar has this crazy idea that Peter, I'm waiting to see Peter's reaction because he's the anti-Zohar here. But the idea that the Zohar presents that basically that if you don't close your eyes, it's as if you're looking at Hashem. And if you're looking at Hashem, that's really disrespectful. And therefore you have to have your eyes closed. It's the idea that's brought in the Zohar. But the Bir Halacha also cites that, as well as his Mishnah Berurah. In the next source, he also cites this here in source 32. That they sort of discuss this. It does seem to go against our Gemara, right? Because the Bavli seems to conclude that you're supposed to look downwards. No, it doesn't say anyway you have to have your eyes closed during davening, contrary to the Zohar. Or rather, the Zohar, I should say, is contrary to the Talmud Bavli. But let's have a look at it. Sometimes the order gets messed around. Okay, let's have a look here, though, in source 32, in the Bir Halacha, exactly how he brings this. So he brings the Mama Mordechai, who says, basically, the Zohar goes against our Gemara. And then we look in source 32, says the Bir Halacha, the Ayin B'Sefer Mama Mordechai, have a look at the Mama Mordechai, Shekatav, who wrote, the Medin HaTalmud, based on our Gemara, the Talmud Bavli, Ein Isur Be'einav P'tuchot. There's no prohibition to have open eyes. Rak Shiyu Einav Lamata Klape Aretz, but just for concentration purposes, you should not be staring all around, you should be staring downwards towards the ground. But according to what the Achronim say, quoting the Zohar, you actually have to close your eyes while doing Amida. Nira, it seems, right? Not for the first time. Oftentimes, the Zohar sometimes will say something which seems to contradict the Bavli. And the Mama Mordechai The Mama Mordechai suggests that this is one such example. But Al Gemara doesn't mention the idea you have to have your eyes closed. Whereas the Zohar says that really one should have their eyes closed. It's not good enough just to look downwards. Can you just pass it? Thank you. So the question is, can we reconcile this? So firstly, it's not so clear we always have to reconcile these things. But we obviously prefer to reconcile them because we don't want to say it's a machlokas between the Zohar and the Bavli. Okay, so let's have a look at potential answer. Okay. Uvachai Adam, so the next paragraph there in source 32. The Chai Adam suggests that even the Zohar didn't mean that you cannot ever open your eyes. It just meant more a kavanah thing. Uvachai Adam mashma the ikah issa af lefi hazohar hu dafrik shemistakel be'einav petuchot as b'shar dvarim. Says the Chai Adam, maybe even the Zohar meant that what does it mean? Doesn't mean you can never open your eyes. It means you shouldn't open your eyes and be looking at other things. That's disrespectful to the Shekhinah. Aval, but im einav lamata kalape aretz. But if you're looking down at the ground, looking downward with your head bowed, you're not looking at other things. Maybe even the Zohar would agree that's allowed. Below pligi klan, there's no actual machloket. However, the Mishnah Berurah is not satisfied with this. And he says, nonetheless, ideally, preference is that you should close your eyes. You should not be looking at anything else, basically, even momentarily. And therefore, there is a preference for somebody who's not looking from a siddur that they should close their eyes. Whether it's like the Zohar says, because it's the front of the Shekhinah that you're, so to speak, gazing at where the Shekhinah is manifest, or whether it's a concentration thing, which is sort of how the Chai Adam sort of make the Zohar sound a bit less mystical. There's preference to close one's eyes if one's not looking downwards at the floor or looking at a siddur. Okay.
Rabbi,
Sorry, one second.
There some?
Yes, Darren.
Isn't there some halacha or something that you're actually, even if you know the bracha or the tefillah by heart, you should actually read it from a siddur and not try to remember it by heart?
There are halachot about that when it comes to like reading psukim and things. But if somebody's confident that they know the tefillah off by heart, then they don't have to read it from the siddur. Psukim and Torah is different, but tefillah, if somebody knows it by heart and they can have kavanah with their eyes closed, that's also good. Okay, so that's a little bit about gazing. The idea is that definitely everyone agrees you're not supposed to be looking around everywhere. It's supposed to be either in the siddur with your eyes down or with your eyes closed, according to all opinions. No one should be staring around. What about shockling and how you hold your hands? You put your hands by your side. Can you hold the shtender? You're supposed to put them over your heart. Where does this come from? So the Gemara here in source 33 in Shabbat already brings the minhag of Rava, right? So Rava here in the Gemara in Shabbat in source 33 says, Rava shadeg lime ufachar yadei. We saw this previously. Rava would take off his cloak, ufachar yadei, and he would put his hands together. Umatzle, and he would daven. Amar, he said, why did he clasp his hands together? Ka'avda kamei mare, like a servant before his master. And therefore he'd put his hands together. The Shulchan Aruch paskins this way, seemingly, but he adds a detail based on the Rambam that is not only that you put your hands together, but you should put your hands over your heart. So you should stand like this in tefillah with your hands over your heart, with one hand over the other. Exactly what Shulchan Aruch rules, and we'll discuss the Achronim in a minute. But that's what the Shulchan Aruch actually says here in Aruch Chaim Study. Hey, also source 34 says the Shulchan Aruch, Meiniach yado al libo kfutin. You should place your hands over one's heart folded. Hayamanit ala smalit, the right hand slightly over the left hand. The omed, and stand ke'eved lifnei rabo, like a servant before his master. Be'ema, be'yira, be'fachad, with fear, with dread, with awe. V'lo yaniach yadav al chalatzav. You shouldn't put your hands on your hips. Ibnei derech yuhara. It's like an arrogant pose. Rather, your hands should be here over your heart, one hand over the other. That is what the Shulchan Aruch rules, based on this practice of Rava. That really one's supposed to stand like this with their hands on their heart, not necessarily with their hands on down the sides. I think more people often stand with their hands by their sides these days. I would say no, I don't know, but you don't see so many people standing like this with their hands over their heart. That's what the Shulchan Aruch said to originally do. However, the Mishnah Berurah here makes an interesting point, which is then is enforced by several Achronim, that ultimately what matters is the social norm, what is considered a respectful pose. So they say about Rav Moshe Feinstein that he once, when he was stopped by the Russians, so he stood like this, he was made to stand like this to attention. So he said for him, this was standing to attention with his arms by his side. Therefore, that was the pose that Rav Moshe Feinstein adopted for tefillah. To him, that was what standing to attention is, right? So yeah, I don't stand like, I could never stand like I did in the Israeli army, like in basic training. They make you stand with your hands behind your back with a diamond. Yahalom, they call it, a diamond. You have to put your, that's not a comfortable pose. Definitely ruin my kavanah. But yeah, you have to like on top of your gun also. Like it's whatever. Okay. So let's have a look in source 35 here. The Mishnah Berurah says it's basically what is considered the norm as to what's respectful. In source 35, libo, but makom she'noagim la'amod ken lifnei hamelech. If that's the way you stand in front of the king, shemedabrim imo, right? Charles hasn't come here yet, so I haven't worked it out. But like, if that's how you stand in front of the king like this, then that's the posture that you adopt. When you're asking for requests, it's all based on local custom. But the Arizal says that one should place their arms over their heart. With the Shem of Moshe Kodorvo, that you should also fold in your thumb as well. It's all to do with a sort of mark of respect. The Kubalim say not to link fingers, like if you shouldn't be like linking fingers because that implies that you're mixing like din and rachamim and rather than just having rachamim. But certainly the Mishnah Berurah sort of raises here that it's to do with very much the social norm. The Aruch HaShulchan perhaps went one step further over the page, source 36. The Aruch HaShulchan says, whatever's going to give you the best kavanah, whether it's like this or like this, whatever's going to give you the best kavanah. If you hold the stender, support that, whatever gives you the best kavanah. That's what the Aruch HaShulchan, he was not shy about disagreeing with the Shulchan Aruch and the Gemara. He said, whatever gives you the best kavanah. Source 36 says the Aruch HaShulchan, ve'ein tiv'ei b'nei adam shavim b'zeh. People's nature is not the same. No two people are the same. Some people can't daven that way. It's difficult for them with their hands on the heart. Right? They put their hands on the bench in front of them. Or la dafa, they've got kotel or on the shelf. The ain klal kavua bezeh. So that's quite a bold statement of him to make. Ain klal kavua bezeh. He disagrees with Shulchan Aruch. He says there's no fixed rule. V'chol echad ya'aseh kafi ma shemutav lo leitpalel ba'ofen zeh. The Aruch HaShulchan rules you should do what's best for you in terms of your kavanah in your tefillah. And therefore, this rule that the Shulchan Aruch brought down is not set in stone about standing with your hands on your heart, but either according to Mishnah Berurah, based on what the norm is what's respectful posture, or Aruch HaShulchan says whatever is best and most comfortable, one gives that individual the best kavanah. So that's about sort of positioning of the hands. The Ramah brings down the minhag to shakel, right? In source 37, the Ramah there says, I can't even pronounce this. The minhag is that when people, when they read, they lane, they shakel when they lane. Just like the Torah itself was given out of fear, trembling. Shackling is supposed to represent sort of retet, like trembling. And also when people daven, they happen to shackle. Al Shem, based on the pasuk, right? All my bones will say who is like you. And the idea of shackling on the one hand might be like fear and awe or trembling, but it's also like excitement of tefillah as well. All my bones will say who is like you, Hashem. And the Ramah brings that there are those who are medakdikim, those who are particular to do this. However, some poskim said you should dafka not shackle during tefillah. The Mishnah Berurah brings them in source 38. The Mishnah Berurah says, b'shash mitpalim, when they daven, the yesh poskim shecholkim al zeh. Some poskim disagree about shackling, but remember they say the b'tefillah elihit na'aneh. You shouldn't shackle during davening. For rak b'psukei dezimra b'rkat kriyat shema v'limud Torah. Afilu sheba'al peh minaglit aneh. Only during shema, psukei dezimra, and learning you should shackle. But during Amidah, some poskim say you should not shackle. The Chatav HaMagen Avraham, and the Magen Avraham writes, V'di'avid kamar avid, di'avid kamar avid. Both opinions are good. If you do this way, it's acceptable. If you do that way, it's acceptable. Says the Mishnah Berurah, a fascinating point. So what should you do? Should you shackle or should you stand still during tefillah? V'hakol lefi mashahu adam. Everything's dependent on the person and his kavanah. If you're the sort of person whose kavanah is improved by shackling, then you can sway. But if not, stand still and have kavanah in your heart. Okay, so that's an important point. Based on what's important in terms of kavanah, what is ideal in terms of kavanah is the best thing at the end of the day. Okay, and he says, he does speak out against people who, well, I don't know what you call them, super shaklas, over shaklas, they're overly shakl. Some may people are tnua meshubeshet, overzealous. Right, okay. Tnua meshubeshet, they get a bit too into it. Shehaguf omed al omdo, the body stays still. Rak barosh hofech pam le'amin pam le'smol derech gaiva. So they turn to the left, they turn to the right, they turn to the left. Ein lasot ken. That you shouldn't do. It's not supposed to be going through the motion. It's supposed to be part of the kavanah. It's not supposed to be left and right. It's not supposed to be a whole, choreographed shakl. It's supposed to be something natural in tefillah. That's what he's referring to. Okay, so there's two approaches in the Achronim, basically. Ramah brings there those who said you should shakl, and there are those that said you should not shakl. But we said that the maskana is that whatever will help with your kavanah is optimal. That's what the Mr. Burra had ruled there. Okay, so let's see Mordechai Eliyahu here inside in the Ma'amar Mordechai, not the same Ma'amar Mordechai that was quoted before. This is Mordechai Eliyahu. Source 39. He says, "Yei Sharon." There are those that say shemitzvah lehitna anea b'tefillah. There is a mitzvah to shakl when you daven. But Yei Sharon she'asr lehitna anea b'tefillah. And some prohibit swaying during davening. Lachen. Therefore, what does Mordechai Eliyahu suggest? Kol adam yivdok ba'atzmo ech mechaven tov yoter b'tfilato. What gives you better kavanah? If swaying and davening makes your tefillah better, you should do that. But if not, stand still like a tree, right? Obviously, the optimal, most important thing is kavanah. Okay. So where does shakling come from? So we saw the Ramah had brought it as the minhag, but it appears in the Zohar, this idea of shakling. And it's not only to do with yira and ema, with terror and dread. It also comes from zrizut and excitement for mitzvot. So the Piskei Tshuva here, Rabinowitz quotes the Zohar. Okay. Let's see here inside in source 40. V'hu minhag kadmon. This minhag is not made up to shakl. It comes in the Zohar. It's an old minhag, me'od, incredibly old minhag. Umuzka b'Zohar kodesh. It's mentioned in the Zohar. Now he quotes the Zohar. Sha'al Rabbi Abba Rabbi Shimon. He asked Rabbi Shimon, Ma tam shekol ha'amim sheba'olam eilam mitnanim. Says the Zohar, what is the reason that all the nations, they don't sway in tefillah, or don't sway in general? Ela Yisrael of Adam, only Yisrael sway. They're only Yisrael shakl. She'oskim b'torei mitnanim, they learn, they move, right? I'm doing it now when I'm thinking about it, right? Lechan, right? That they move. It's hard to not do it, right? That when they learn, they shakl here and there below shum limud. The hergel me'eze adam ba'olam. No one told them to do this. Where did this idea of shakling when you learn come from? Right? No one's told them to do it. It's just like a natural inkling. They're unable to sit still. Why are Jews ADD? That's what he wants to know. Why is it that Jews naturally don't sit still? It doesn't appear anywhere in Jewish literature that you have to shakl. Amarlo, Rabbi Shimon responds to him. We're deep into Kabbalah here, but the souls of Bnei Yisrael are lit all from a holy candle. And this candle, where we're all our neshamot come from, when it's lit, this candle, which is sort of excited by the Torah, is never complacent and never sits still even for a moment. The same way that the light of a candle, the flame of a candle with the wick. Bnei Yisrael are like the wick of a candle, the flame of a candle. The flame of a candle is never still. We're constantly moving around. So too is the same as the Jewish soul, says the Zohar. Once it hears one thing of Torah, they move around like a flame flickers. And the soul is like a ner of Hashem. And therefore they're silent any light. And therefore, says the Zohar, basically, it comes from this excitement of jumping around with the light of Torah. Okay, I'm not too much into the Zohar. It's not so much my thing, but it's a nice idea that this excitement of Torah which comes naturally when we learn. Of a Kuzari, the Kuzari also quotes a similar thing. Amar Kuzari, in the Kuzari he quotes, says the Kuzari, Ishalotcha. I'm going to ask you, says the king of Kuzar, why is it that when Jews read in Hebrew, they sway, they shuckle? Amar Chaver, the wise man said in the Kuzari, Amru ki ba'avu ha'ira ha'chomat hativit. It's because of the basically to waken up the natural heat. But tofu is the excitement, basically. But tofu lahasika kavan levata machshavot zarot. Swaying is basically there to bring concentration and remove the other thoughts. This swaying is part of the path of the neshama, who are called mashu adam, each based on the individual. Says the Piskei Teshuvot, it's all based on the person's soul, and his deeds. You should not copy other people's shuckling. It's a personal thing. That doesn't give you divine chiyus, life. Okay, not so much my thing, but nice idea that the Zohar quotes that the shuckling just didn't come from anyone specific. It was just a thing which was done. Yes, Peter, I can see you're burning to ask a question.
So obviously we never learn any halacha from the Zohar. I am given to believe that there is also, I don't know how to put it delicately.
Try.
In Kabbalah, there's a thing about the mystical union of the Ducher and the Shechina, and there's a semi-sexual element to shuckling.
I don't know what you're referring to. Baruch Hashem.
But also the other thing is, if during the Amidah you're meant to be like someone would be in front of the Melech, I am sure that when Charles comes here, no one's going to stand and shuckle in front of him.
Right. So when the Ramah originally brought the idea of shuckling, it wasn't due to sort of excitement. It was beretet. It was with fear. It was trembling rather than shuckling. But there's definitely something to what you're saying. That's the Zohar's angle, is that it doesn't come necessarily from fear. It comes or terror or nerves. It comes from excitement of the Shechina, like a candle flickering, right? Chiyus, right? The chiyus, the life, rather than. But that's an important point to think about as well. Needless to say, the Rambam doesn't talk about shuckling. The Rambam stood there. I don't know if this is how in Egypt they would stand in front of the Sultan, but this is the part. The Rambam also brings the Gemara that says that you put your hands like this, like the Shulchan Aruch eventually paskins. But the Achronim of the last century say that the minhag is based on how you stand in front of the Melech, and I don't think people stand in front of the Melech like this. Stand with their hands, I think, to either side. So,
on the heart and the soul. You don't just not passively actually put your full emphasis in your body emphasis into fabric.
Right.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So it's but Peter's point was, what is it? Is it about oomph or is it about yira? If it's about yira, then shuckling doesn't seem to be so relevant to davening essentially. Yeah. Okay. But But nonetheless, it's got this minhag of the Zohar, but the Ramah brings it as more of fear. The Zohar gives it more of an angle of sort of excitement and passion in particular. Okay, what about kavana, concentration? Okay, we spoke about posture and things like that, but there are other things for concentration. You're not supposed to hold anything in your hands when you're davening. Let's look here on page 116, Gemara and Sukkah, and source 41. And we've seen this Gemara previously, the Gemara and Sukkah, about objects. You should not be holding objects during tefillah. Source 41, the Gemara Sukkah says, Amalei mar bar ameim Rav Ashi. Mar bar ameim said to Rav Ashi, Abba tzluye kamatzle be. They're talking about the Arba Minim. My father, Rav Ashi, would daven with them. He would hold the lulav and etrog whilst he was davening. Mate, like during Amidah. How could he, right? Never mind, on his phone or whatever, with the tefillah app. Meitive, they challenged Rav Ashi from a brighter. How could Rav Ashi do this? Lo yachaz adam tefillin biyado. We already learned this brighter that you cannot hold tefillin in your hand, or sefer Torah b'cheiko, or hold a sefer Torah, v'yit palel, whilst davening. V'lo yashtin behen mayim. You're also not allowed to urinate with them, holding them. V'lo in the vicinity. V'lo yishan behen lo shen akev lo shen arai. We learned that it's about tefillin. You're not allowed to hold tefillin or a sefer Torah during davening. So how was it? You're not allowed to hold things in your hands. How could Rav Ashi hold the lulav and etrog? Shmuel goes further and says, "Sakinu ka'ara kikara ma'ot." The same applies if someone wants to hold a knife, a bowl, a loaf of bread, or money. It's the same thing. You cannot hold them during tefillah. So how could Rav Ashi hold the lulav during davening? Answers the Gemara: Hatam lav mitzvah ninhu v'tarid b'hu. There was no mitzvah to hold them. Hacha, but here mitzvah ninhu v'lo tarid b'hu. It was a mitzvah to hold the arba minim sukkot, and therefore he's not going to be bothered. Like he's not worried about it. It comes from a place of doing the mitzvah, not from a place of I've got a really valuable object that I've got in my hands, which is distracting. During the Shemona Esrei, yeah, because it's a mitzvah to hold it the whole day. It's a kiyum when you hold it. So therefore, he kept holding it and he wasn't hurried. He wasn't bothered. So that's what he says. There's a machloket here in the Rishonim, sorry, as to how to understand this difference. Why a devar mitzvah versus not a devar mitzvah? Rashi says because when it's an object which is not for a mitzvah, you're concerned that you're going to drop the object. That you do, why are you holding it? Because it's valuable. That's why you're holding it. So you've got your tefillin in the bag, so you don't want to drop them. There's nowhere to put them down. Let's say you don't want to drop them, and therefore that's distracting you. So that's why Rashi understands. If you look at Rashi here in source 42, Rashi in the Gemara there, lo yachaz adam, you shouldn't hold them. You're worried they're going to drop and become degraded. And you were distracted and you can't concentrate on your tefillah. Love mitzvah because they're not a mitzvah la'ochzan. There's no mitzvah to hold them. V'havyin alav lamasa. It's like a burden. It's a distraction. Lefichach therefore tarad v'masa'an. You're worried about holding them. V'kaved alav masa'am u'shmiratam. And it's on your mind and it bothers you. And therefore he says that those things bother you. Over the page, hacha, but here holding the lulav, to hold the lulav is a mitzvah. Since the mitzvah is desirous to him, it's not like a burden that he bears. Below tired and he won't be distracted. So Rashi's explanation is that it's all about whether or not distraction. The guiding principle is for a mitzvah to be distracted, but for this you would not. And therefore, says the Beit Yosef, according to Rashi, if I have an object which is not valuable, I don't care if it drops, that wouldn't be prohibited during davening to hold an object which I don't care about or I'm not worried about smashing. That's what the Beit Yosef says in source 43. Let's see the Beit Yosef here. The Perish Rashi, love mitzvah la'ochsan. Rashi understands it means it's not a mitzvah to hold it. Mahavyin lav lamasa, and therefore it's a burden. If you kach, therefore tired b'masa'an, you're bothered about it. Whereas here it's a mitzvah. Okay, I'm not going to quote the whole Rashi again. Let's just go to the bold at the end of source 43. Says the Beit Yosef, according to Rashi's explanation, shad varim she'ein behem hefsid. What is something which does not come of great loss? It's not expensive. In yitplu miyado, if they fall. Mutal hitpalel ba'odam biyado. According to Rashi, as long as it's not an object that terribly worries you to drop it, you'd be allowed to hold it during davening, even if it's not for a mitzvah. That's Rashi's understanding of the Gemara. Rabbeinu Yonah, however, said that no, rather there's just a full-out prohibition to hold anything during tefillah. It's not about distraction. It's not respectful to hold anything while you're davening, and the only exception would be something which you're doing for a mitzvah. It's not disrespectful to do a mitzvah in front of Hashem, but to hold anything would be prohibited. This is what Rabbeinu Yonah holds in source 44. The prohibition in the Gemara to hold a knife and a bowl and a loaf of bread and money, lav dafka. It doesn't mean only these items. These are just examples of normal things. But the same thing is true. You should not be holding anything during davening. Only a lulav would be allowed. Because the Chachamim allows you to hold arba minim mitzvah because of the dearness of the mitzvah. Lo yimat kavanat tefillah. It's not going to ruin your kavanah. According to this, according to this, so we have a nafka mina between Rashi and Rabbeinu Yonah. According to Rashi, it's only thing to distract you. You can't hold. According to Ben Yonah, you can't hold anything in your hands because it's disrespectful. How does Shulchan Aruch rule? Next page, Tzadi Vav, source 45. So a siddur would be an exception, I think, because that's a tzorech tefillah. That's not disrespectful. And therefore a siddur would, I think, be fine with everyone. Okay. So this is the machloket, Shulchan Aruch passes, but doesn't tell us if he's passing like Rashi or like Rabbeinu Yonah. Is it only these objects that distract you, like which are worth money, or any objects? Let's see inside in source 45. Shumit Palel, when he's davening, lo yachez biyado tefillin v'lo sefer mikrit be'akodesh v'lo ka'ara malea v'lo sakin kikar. You can't hold a bowl or a knife or money or a loaf of bread. Mipnei shelibo alehem, his heart is thinking about them. Shelo yiplu v'yitrovi patel kavanato. He's going to lose kavana. V'lulav bismano mutalechos biyado. You're allowed to hold a lulav on Sukkot. Kivan shachisa biyado hi mitzvah ein nitra b'shvilo. That's a mitzvah and it's not a distraction. But so it's not so clear what we do. The Mishnah Berurah here in source 46 though says that the machloket we just saw between Rashi versus Rabbeinu Yonah would be applied perhaps throughout tefillah, and not just during the Amidah. That you shouldn't be holding other things during Shema either, for example, or Psukkah Zimra. Those spinners, sorry, if you believe they help you concentrate, then you've not been a teacher. That's all I can say. I have very different experience. But yeah, during teaching during COVID over Zoom, that was just one massive spinner because everyone had a computer. They were just. But I don't know. But the Shulchan Aruch is not machriya. It doesn't seem to paskin one way or another. But look here at the beginning of 46. He says that this machloket applied to all of tefillah. Source 46. Shumit palel b'prima gadim katav dehuadim b'shat kriyat shema u'psukei zimra. Right. So even during shema u'psukei zimra, this halacha applies as well. That you shouldn't be holding on things either because of Rashi of distraction of dropping it, or according to Rabbeinu Yonah because it's distraction. It's not respectful. You're going to ruin your kavanah. Continuation. Second paragraph in source 46 says the Mishnah Berurah Mark Kikar. These examples of the money and the loaf of bread and the bowl set and the knife, says the Mishnah Berurah, but dafka hani, it's only these because they'll cause a loss if you break them. Or yazikula, or they'll hurt him, right? Injure you if you drop a knife. Not a good idea. Aval sha'arei dvarim mutalechos. Maybe other objects you could hold. However, he brings both opinions. The Yesharim, there are those that say dahani lav dafka. It's lav dafka, like we saw in the Rabbeinu Yonah. These are just typical examples. But who hadin, but the same thing is true. She'ein litel shum davar. Beyond.
One, two, three. Hello.
Yeah,
Sorry about that. Yes. What's the question?
So the question is, if you were in a situation where you were in a crowded area, an open area, and you want to put your suitcase down, an item of wealth down, and you could hold it in that case when you're davening, because your kavanah might be lost because you're worried about the object being taken away from you, so you hold it in your hand while you're davening.
So let's have a look at the Piskei Shibud now. I was going to discuss that sort of case. So let's have a look. Let me just share screen. Oops. 1 second. My computer's being a bit slow. Let's just get back to 1 second. I'll just get there. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Okay, so let's see it inside here in the Piskei Tshuva here. Source 47. Sorry about that. Source 47 says Piskei Tshuva. Mishnah Berurah the Hani Lav Dafka. Mishnah Berurah brings both opinions, right? Ella ain lital biyad shum devar b'eit tefillah. You shouldn't be really holding anything during davening. The reason being, she'ein derech eretz la'amod b'fnei anashim gedolim v'chafatzim biyado. Would you stand, right, as Peter said before, would you stand before the king with holding things in your hands? All the more so before Hashem. And therefore, even if they're hanging around your neck, right? The tourist camera or binoculars, right? You should really remove them because it's disrespectful. You wouldn't stand that way before prominent people. And therefore, you shouldn't be davening with a bag on your back. The sakit or any sakit like bag or you shouldn't be holding things in your hand, bags and goodness knows what else, or wearing a rucksack while you're davening Amida. Okay, what about you're worried about you've got something very valuable, you don't want to put it down. So let's have a look. So here at the top of page 119, the Piskei Tshuva continues and he says exactly your question. The im choshesh, if he's concerned, and he's scared, he's afraid, shema yiganev or yinazek, im yisalkenu me'alav, right? You're worried about your passport being stolen. I don't know what it is, whatever. You're worried it's going to get taken. Mutav sheyachas yikenu biyado or al ktefav v'kavanato tiyeh meyushevet. It's better that you have it still in your hand or on your shoulder. You've got a backpack and you can't put it down even in front of you. It's better that it's on you. It's better that it's on you and your kavanah is fixed. Yota, that's more important than putting it off of yourself. And then you spend what you do in the airport. You spend the whole davening going like that, right? That's much worse. But yet harud, you're so paranoid, you're scared the whole way through. The same thing is true, right? So the army, right, with a gun. If there's no prohibition to have the gun on your person, if you have to have it on you, now, if you're worried about leaving it. We spoke in the past, you should really cover a gun. But, yeah, okay, if possible. But if the kavanah is going to be ruined and dafka, it's better to have it, then that might be the case that it's better to have it. If your kavanah be worse, it's by putting it down. Okay. What about phones? Can I hold a phone while I'm davening? Seemingly not. What about if I have it in my pocket? Poskim are also happy about having a phone in your pocket, even especially if obviously if it's on ringer, but even if it's on like vibrate. You're going to see this inside because, like, why don't you should put it on silent or on flight mode while you're going into davening? This is what the like you basically got. Why would you have someone disturb you? So Piskei Tshuva discusses it. Let's have a look here. The modern poskim discusses. Look here in source 48. Umikan nilmad, it's a bit of musa for all of us. Umikan nilmad, from here we learn ad kama chamor, how terrible it is, how serious it is. Lahachsit with gadav telephone, b'shat tefillah. There you go, right? Oh, thank you for that. So tell him off from me. How much is it? How chamor is it to have your phone on while you're davening? Ha'alolet salzel b'kol. It makes noise. And bother all of the other people davening. Forget holding a knife or a bowl in your hand. Having a phone which can go off and disturb the entire shul is much worse than any of these examples which we just learned together, which mentioned by Gemara and the Gemara of Shulchan Aruch, ala zehirus, on the importance to be careful, not to disturb other people davening. It makes a joke and a mockery out of the shul or the Beit Midrash. But even if it's on vibrate, only he notices it. If you're going to receive a call during davening, that if you think you might get a call during davening, that's included in the halacha we learned here. It's prohibited to have something which is going to stop your kavanah. Because anything which is going to detract from your kavana, you should not have on your person. And therefore, even to have your phone on vibrate, if you think a call's going to come through, or you're going to get texts and it's going to bother you, what's that? That is a problem. Also, the Chida writes this. Obviously, the Chida did not write about phones, but the Chida wrote, that the Makubalim would say, the Kabbalists would say, even if you daven with something in your hand that you weren't supposed to, even though b'diavad, you don't have to go back. Nonetheless, said the Kabbalists, ain't tefillah nishmat, your tefillah is not heard. And therefore, you should not be having phones on in davening, certainly obviously not on ringer, but he talks about maybe even having on, on vibrate if the call is going to distract you. Why not just put it on like flight mode or on silent while you're davening? The Mishnah Berurah here talks about not having a child in front of you while davening Amida. Source 49, Kara Malaya, Vakatav Berurah Yosef says the Chida, V'hu hadin she'asa lahoshiv tinok lifanam b'shat tefillah. You can't have a kid, you couldn't put a kid in front of you when you're davening, if that little kid who's going to make noise and distracts you. Okay, having said all of this, a couple of exceptions. So we'll read inside here in source 50. Truma Tadeshin brings the exception of a siddur. Siddur, obviously, is for the need of tefillah itself. That's not an issue. Let's just read it actually inside quickly. Source 50. Venira, it seems, but done in our case. Oh, but tafsel l'shem tefillah. Since you're holding a siddur for the purpose of tefillah atzma, kedei litpalel be'inu v'diuk yafeh, so you can daven properly. Ein masa am kaved elav v'lo tarid. That's not a burden. It's not an issue, and therefore there's no issue with holding a siddur during davening. And so says the Shulchan Aruch in source 51. Due to time, we won't read it inside. The Ramah, though, in source 51 does say you shouldn't try and get a tefillah during dav. You shouldn't go looking for a siddur in the middle of the amid, unless you know where they are on the shelf. You should start with the siddur, but you shouldn't like wander off halfway through to go get a siddur. Okay, can I daven from an app on my phone? That's what the poskim deal with. The Alkut Yosef was asked about davening from a computer. I guess same thing with a tablet or something as well. Let's look at here. It's like Yosef in source 52. That which they've invented recently. You have everything on a pocket computer. You can daven from a computer, according to the letter of the law. We're not concerned that he's going to drop the computer. They only prohibited davening something in your hand. Only when it's going to distract him from his tefillah. But if you're holding it in order to daven, even though the computer or the phone or whatever it is expensive, and you're concerned, that it might fall from your hand, nonetheless. Suspense. Nonetheless. Over the page. It's no different. It's no different from someone who has a leather-bound machzor, right? Yakar erech, of which is expensive. To kivin she'osek b'tefillah mitoch chefetz zeh. Sorry, not that expensive. What about the crocodile skin ones? Like really fancy. To kivin she'osek b'tefillah mitoch chefetz zeh. Since you're doing it for davening, there's not concern that you're going to be distracted. So that's what he spoke about a computer. It sounds like he's talking about a handheld computer of sorts. What about a phone? Sorry? The old PDAs, right? Okay. So what about a phone? So here Rav brings in Rav Eliezer Malamed in source 53. Plinei Halacha says that phones are kind of worse. And if you're going to use it, you should turn the phone off or put it on flight mode or something. And if there's siddurim, you shouldn't use a phone. Only use a phone if you've got no siddur. Source 53 says the Plinei Halacha. Before davening, you should turn your mobile off. In a shul, anywhere where there are siddurim, shouldn't really be using your phone as a siddur. So you don't get distracted. So you shouldn't look like you are looking at messages during tefillah. I'll add here my own little thing, or during halacha yomit. Okay, end of rant. But somebody who doesn't have a siddur and you need to look at your device for tefillah, Yavatel tchila to efshur lekabel sichot hodaot. Translate that into modern English. Put it on flight mode before you use the Siddur app. Mishi kaven v'yitztarchu lehazikol l'sorach tachuf ma'od. What if you're Hatzala, Michael, and you need your phone? Yashir tamachshir zamin. You should leave it on available. You should put it on vibrate. Try not to disturb other people. Try to turn the volume down a bit or put it on vibrate, whatever it is. Sorry? Phone's always on silent. Baruch Hashem. So I can never get hold of it.
It actually has a ring. The emergency beep comes through on the phone, which alerts us to the fact that there's an emergency coming through. Even on silent mode, which is three beeps, we know it's going. So that we know it's a call.
Supposed to, like, the old computers where you suddenly, you're getting a phone call because you hear zzz, the internet was starting, the interaction. Yeah. Okay. Let's have a look quickly to end off the chapter. Peter, yeah, go on, Peter.
There's a nifty app called Stock, SHTOK.
SHTOK, an app.
Yeah, called Stock. Be quiet, and you put it on your phone, and then you tell it when you're in shul that you're in shul, and then it marks the GPS of the shul. So every time you go into shul, it puts it on silent, puts itself on silent.
That's great. Could it differentiate between the shul and the Beit Midrash? Because I kind of
no, it's not. Yeah, it works in the Beit Midrash too. It regards it all as the same place.
That's a problem for me. The problem is I live next door, so it probably won't work in my house either.
You can adjust the sensitivity.
I see. Okay. All right. We said it. Okay, let's have a look here. They talk about a section here about women holding young children during Shemona Esrei. Dare I call myself liberal, but I would have said that the same thing would be also men holding young children during Shemona Esrei. Okay, what if you've got little kids? The Penini Halach here in source 54 is quite strict. It says, right? A woman, but I think the same thing for a man. You should not be holding a baby during davening. Because again, it's the same thing. You're worried that the baby's going to fall. And furthermore, it's going to distract her. Even if it's in the minsa, the wrap, the carrier, that's not how you stand in davening before Hashem. If there's no choice, if she's stuck, there's no one else at home. If the person knows that they'll have kavanah even holding the baby or with the baby on them, then she can daven that way. Look, she's concerned she won't be able to daven that way. It's better that a woman doesn't daven. She'll fulfill the mitzvah. We saw the Magen Avraham says, according to him at least, so women don't have to daven as long as they do Birkat Torah and Birkat Shachar. That counts. That you could say even those brachot you can say even when holding a baby.
A woman holding a baby rather than a man holding a baby is because you wouldn't have that baby.
Right, because a man will be obligated to find someone else to hold the woman, to hold the baby and daven. Right, whereas here he's saying you can be son of Magen Avraham if you're stuck.
You have that baby in shul because the baby's still in nappies. With a baby who's still in nappies in shul, therefore the mother is at home. He says here at home. Doesn't say in shul. She should have been at home. So you wouldn't have that baby in nappies in shul.
No comment. Okay.
There's a whole
Okay. All right. So the Rigshay Lev says here that the same thing is true. Peter, is your hand still up or is it just down? No. Okay. All right. So the Rigshay Lev here also says that you shouldn't be davening, holding anything while they're siddur. And he says here, mother may hold her child only if the child's crying, disturbing her. And therefore it's better she holds it to have some sort of kavanah, or holding the child is the only way she'll be able to daven is proper kavanah. And therefore, or C, sorry, there's no other time she can actually expect to daven. So he doesn't go to the extreme of Rav Melamed saying that she should just fulfill her obligation with brachot, but rather that it's okay basically to hold it if there's no other choice so that she can daven. But you said about children not being in shul. What about children coming to shul if they can't daven? Right. So look here, the Mishnah Berurah brings the Shlah, who was very critical of it. Source 56. The Shlah, Koreh Hagar, he was very critical. Al Mavim Yeladim Beit HaKnesset. He was very critical of people who bring little kids to shul. Behind Katanim Sha'adayim La Agir Lechinuch, but they're not yet educated. Mitam Ke Yeladim Mesachakim Ragdim Beit HaKnesset. Right. You have certain kids who play and they jump around the shul. And they disgrace the place. They also distract people davening. Even when they grow up, they're not going to stop this. Basically, their parents let them run around without controlling them. When they reach the age of chinuch, of educating them, on the contrary, they should come to shul. They should learn the way to stand properly in front of Hashem, and they should not let the child learn to sit still and daven properly. To answer amen and to kaddish and kedusha, etc. So this is very important. The idea that to get the right balance, to bring a child, but not a child who's going to overly distract, but when the child's starting to learn to sit, that is the time to bring them in. Tefillah Kehilchta says the same idea, but a bit more matun, a bit more moderate. But he says, it's good you bring them to kiss the Torah. You bring them in, you start with 10 minutes, you start with 15, you get to half an hour. I'm always building up with my 4-year-old, bit by bit. I think he's doing all right. So yeah. So to encourage them in mitzvot. And father should stand next to him. You shouldn't just leave the kid going wild around the shul. You've got to watch them. You've got to show them how to daven properly, but not let the kids run around wild. It's all about getting the right balance. You've got to have the kids come into the shul, but at the same time, but he also says that they're very small. It's best not to bring them in if they're going to disturb people. I'm sorry, we're going to have to end there just to time. Peter, feel free to message me your question, but we've got Mariv next door. So we'll have to stop there. So lunch and learn tomorrow, those who are around, will be on betting in covered of the Chag HaSusim. So tomorrow I'll be talking about gambling in Halacha. And we've got to run next door for Mariv.